Hey there, what you looking at? You want to go grab a coffee? That's my attempt at a gangster from New York. Really poor, but it's kind of appropriate because right now, on this very video, I'm going to dispense with this voice because it's very annoying. But right here on this video, I am going to do a quick retrospective, looking back at my last visit to New York City in 2010. So back then, the wife and I, we didn't even have cats then, so we could just get up and go. You know, we didn't have to call a babysitter, cat sitter. And we'd got a call one day, or I guess it was an email because it was coming from overseas, from a couple of friends of ours saying that they were going to be in New York in January of that year, 2010, and that they wanted to join us for some art collective. It was really pretentious and very, very fun. And we did. We went out there for 5 days. It's freezing, but that's fine. And bear in mind, at this time, I was still very much in that mode of, I'm a newbie to this country. And so, you know, the things that I'd learned in Indiana, I had to then relearn in New York City in many ways. But I think, because the first time I went, I didn't get to see too much. It was more of I was passing through, if nothing else, on the way to Boston and then Maine. And so it was on this journey in 2010 that, for example, I got to see for the very first time with my own eyes the Statue of Liberty, who we did say in the last video, or a couple of videos ago, is much smaller than she appears, but she does have a big heart, so that more than makes up for it, right? She also has a giant book and a torch, so I wouldn't fancy my chances in a fight. So not that I would start a fight with the symbol of freedom. But yeah, I mean, I touched on this in a previous video, you know, it was this sort of aha moment. I was suddenly there, this place that I'd seen in films 100 million times. That's no exaggeration, it's a slight exaggeration, but I'd seen it many a time and never actually thought with my own eyes I'd be touching Lady Liberty. I just realised I didn't touch her with my eyes. She touched me with hers, but that's another story. I was married at the time, plus I don't find statues vaguely attractive in the least. Maybe some. Maybe the Lincoln one here, especially without the beard. But, you know, it was phenomenal in many ways. I think one of the things that the films don't really show you very often is just the history behind the immigration to do with Staten Island and Ellis Island, and all of that, and just sort of the treacherous waters, sometimes literally so, that immigrants would have to face. For me, I just got on a plane and landed here, and all I got was bad knees out of the deal. You know, these people probably had hypothermia. Some of them, they didn't really come in rowing boats. That's the image in my head, that they rowed here from Italy. I got to see Times Square. You know, I don't know why I said it like that. I think some lady in Forrest Gump says it that way. Anyway, we didn't just get to see Times Square, we stayed in Times Square. Not in the street. There was a hotel. It wasn't a particularly expensive hotel because it was currently being renovated and it was housed next door to the Church of Scientology, so that probably had something to do with its low costs. I remember we walked around a lot, mainly, and we got blisters on our feet, and you know, saw the sights, as it were, got to know all of the nooks and crannies of the city, didn't get any yellow taxi, but marvelled at them. I even drooled at some point. And we just had a great time. It wasn't particularly warm, but I don't think it mattered. It sort of added to the romance that there was a layer of snow on the ground. You know, it was like being in Home Alone 2 Lost in New York. And now, where I live, it's like being in Home Alone 1. I do have this really striking memory of ordering what was labelled as a sausage roll, and back in the day I wasn't a vegetarian and sausage rolls were among the food items I missed most from England. And when it came back to me, it certainly wasn't what I knew as to be a sausage roll. It was some kind of bread with a sausage built into it, and I let them know that, hey, this isn't a sausage roll, this looks more like a damp pizza. At which point he became very angry and said something along the lines of, "I'm sorry, buddy," but in a New York accent. And actually I came to find out after he wasn't angry at all. It's just, they just sort of sound angry a bit. But it was all like, you know, well, you could wash it down with a cup of your coffee if you want. I always say coffee because it's a word that you can say that sounds quite, you know, quite New Yorky, you know. It's a hard one to do without diverting into stereotype. And there is this very real magic nature to New York City, I think. It's in the air, it's all around you. And I think we left leaving, believing that we may well move there one day. This is back when we were young and foolish and thought that we were going to become Broadway sensations by the time we were 30, 35 now, so that didn't happen. So I'm in Chicago, you know, the second city, which is actually now the third city. Population of Los Angeles has overtaken it. Anybody who is a fan of my channel will know that I am a big fan of parks, and there's probably, in fact there's definitely no bigger park in the whole of New York City than Central Park. It's massive. It's also completely rectangle. It's very indicative, that, isn't it, of just how America's set up. You've got states like, I think it's Colorado, that's a complete rectangle, you know, and things work here in a grid system. Well, that park is a rectangle. Very beautiful place. You know, I could definitely sleep in there, for real. You know, no tent, you know, so long as it's summertime, and there are no thugs around. But, you know, it's funny because the memory that sticks out to me, aside from the sort of just a nice picturesque scene that is Central Park, was seeing the building outside of which John Lennon was shot, quite nearby, the Dakota building. It was quite sobering. I'd always heard the story of John Lennon's assassination, you know, just not even a year before I was born, which obviously makes me believe that I could be the reincarnation. Although some say that I look like Paul McCartney. I don't see it myself. But all joking aside, it was a heart-stopping moment, just standing there and knowing what went down in December 1980, and thankfully, I think, you know, that feeling of sort of tragedy on the day when I was here, I think was lifted by this Strawberry Field mural, if that's what you want to call it. It was very touching. Very touching moment, yeah. I suppose one of the enduring images of our visit there is seeing the Empire State Building lit up at night, because it wasn't just sort of a generic yellow colour. They sort of put blues and reds and greens on it. I'm not sure why, really, but it just sort of helped create this magic in the air. It was almost like it was pulling the magic around it, and yeah, I would love to go again. I would love to go again. I think, though, now that I am 35 and now that Broadway career is gone, I wouldn't want to live there. I don't think. I think it's too massive. I feel like Chicago has this sort of manageable nature to it. I don't know, I get the sense that it is a bit dog-eat-dog world out there, and I'm an old dog with frail legs and poor teeth. But in Chicago, they happily let me in because they know that I am not a threat to them, and I think they like that. They can pat me on the head and say, I'm not a dog. I am not a dog, despite everything I just said. And so New York City, my big apple friend, until next time, later Yankees. That's not a reference to the baseball team, just Americans in general who live in New York.